Hello everyone. In this video, I am going to demonstrate a CI/CD pipeline which I built in one of my projects. So in this demo, a CI process is taken care by Jenkins, whereas the CD process is taken care by Argo CD, which is a GitOps tool and designed to work natively with Kubernetes clusters. So for this demo, I'll be using my local repo using my preferred ID, which is a Visual Studio Code. So when I'm going to push the changes to my GitHub repo, it will send a trigger to the Jenkins via the webhook, and GitHub webhook will trigger this pipeline in the Jenkins. So pipeline will go through a few stages. So in the first stage, the pipeline will be using Maven to build the Spring Boot app. In the second stage, the code is further being inspected for the quality check using the Sonar Cube. In the third stage, Docker image is being built and uploaded to the Docker Hub account. In the final stage, the app's manifest deployment file in my GitHub repo is being updated with the latest image tag. Now these changes in the manifest repo is being picked up by the Argo CD, and the Kubernetes deployment is further being updated with the latest image tag. So we are going to look into the whole process. So having said that, let's jump into the demo. So first of all, we'll look into the Argo CD cluster. So for the Kubernetes clusters, I'm using a Minikube. So my Argo CD deployment is onto the Kubernetes cluster using the Minikube. So let's look into the deployment. So I'm using in the Argo CD namespace for this deployment. So here we can look into all the deployment which is actually deployed as part of this the installation. So let's look into all the pods. So these are the pods which actually deployed as part of the Argo CD cluster, and we have the Argo CD server, which actually this is the main application for this Argo CD cluster. And let's look into the different services which are actually exposed. So if we look into the Argo CD server, we have exposed this application using the node port, and the port number 30699 is actually used for the HTTP service, and port number 30958 is being actually used for the HTTPS service. So as I'm using the Minikube, I'm actually the Minikube service to expose that to the laptop, so I can actually access these URLs on my laptop. And so let's look into the Minikube service. So if you look into the Argo CD, so this is the URL which we are going to use to access the Argo CD UI. Okay, since I have already logged in here, we can just simply log out and we can. Okay, let me put in my credentials. So here you can see we have two different applications which are already deployed. So demo app actually being deployed using the GitHub repo, and the Nginx app is using the Helm charts. So if you look into the repo, I have already configured two different repositories. One is via the Helm chart, which is using a popular Bitnami Helm chart repo, and the second one is my GitHub repo. So I've configured that as well. And that's how. Now again, look into the application. So now, if you look into this demo app, it's actually using a deployment called Spring Boot app, which further actually have using the replica set to deploy these couple of pods. And then we have the services which actually which is exposing this service using the endpoints to the end user, so they can actually access this app what we have built using the Maven. So let's look into the go further into the deployment and look into the image tag what's being used at the moment. So if you look into the image tag, we are using the image tag 3 for this service. So what we are going to do from this whole CI/CD process is that the image, a new image will be created, let's say for the image, the tag number 4, and that image will be pushed to the Docker Hub. Now those changes will be picked up by the manifest file will be updated as well. So those changes in the manifest file will be picked up by the Argo CD, and this deployment will be updated with the new replica set and with the completely new ports. So let's go through the whole process. Let me bring my Visual Studio Code. So here is my Visual Studio Code. Let me just make minor changes here. Okay, let me just save the file. Now, before we actually push this to the GitHub repo, we have to configure our GitHub webhook. But as my all this application deployment is on my local network on my laptop, so and these are not exposed to the internet, I'm going to use something called internet proxy application. So for that proxy application, I'm using something called localhost. So what this is going to do is going to provide us a public URL, expose this Jenkins URL to the internet. So it should be able to receive the GitHub webhook trigger, which actually being sent by the GitHub. So let's get this public URL first and then update our webhook on the GitHub. Okay, so the service has started and this is the public URL which actually been given. Now let's go to the webhook configuration for this repo. And let me update this URL. Okay, so now the book has been triggered. Now so this is the pipeline which should be triggered. Now let me just push the now when I'm pushing these changes, it should actually trigger this build here, a new build. Let's just wait for a couple of seconds. So here you go. So a new build has been triggered. You can see that started by a GitHub push. If you look into this build, we can see that okay, the build and test stage has started. We are simply using the Maven clean package to build this app. So you look into the details here. What is going to do is just downloading using the, if you look into here, is using the pom.xml to download all the dependencies, and then is going to build this image, build this app. So let's wait for this stage to be completed. So here you can see the stages, our Jenkins file as well. So this is the build and test stage. The next is the SonarQube code inspection stage, where we are going to use the with SonarQube environment. We can look into the plugins and then we can see that how we going to utilize the SonarQube. So these are the environment variable which we have configured into the Jenkins UI. So this actually provide the URL of the SonarQube. We are actually configured the SonarQube. Then again is going to look into the app code and is going to provide us a bit detail about the code what is being actually built, the code actually what we have used to build this application. The further, this is the build and push image stage. So here we have all the environment variable of the repo what actually is going, where actually is going to push this Docker image with the latest tag. So this is simply building the Docker image, and this is the registry, and these are the credentials which we have configured into our Jenkins as well. And this is the final stage where actually we are going to change the, so this is where we are going to replace the tag, the image tag, and then we are going to build into a completely different repo. So this is the repo, this is the new repo where actually the Spring Boot app manifest. So this is the repo actually which is being monitored by the Argo CD. So whenever the changes happen in this repo, these changes will picked up by the Argo CD. So let's wait for these stages to be completed, and in the meanwhile we can look into our Grafana and our Prometheus as well. So I have deployed a Grafana and Prometheus. So if we look into the deployment in the monitoring namespace, so I have a Grafana, I have a Prometheus. Let's look into the pod what we have deployed as part of this deployment. So here we have the Grafana port, we have the Prometheus, we have some other ports for this alert managers and some other things. So let's look into the services. Okay, so here we have for Grafana we are again using the node port to expose that to our local node, and the port what we are going to use is 30120 for the HTTP service. And for the Prometheus, again we are using the node port service, and we are using 31360. So let's look into the again, as I mentioned, I'm using the Minikube. I'm using the Minikube service to expose these services to as a URL to my laptop. Okay, so here we can see the build and push Docker image is being, the stage is being in the progress, and this is again going to build. So here you can see the Docker image, the build has been completed, and now is going to push this Docker image to the repo, what we have mentioned in our Jenkins file. Now coming back to the monitoring, so here we have the Grafana URL, so we can simply access the Grafana URL from this link. And the Prometheus using this link, this URL. Now if we look into the targets for the Prometheus, here we have a lot of targets, but we are more interested into the Argo CD. So here for the Argo CD I have configured these four targets. So the Argo CD matrix is going to provide a lot of information about the Argo CD, and we have a lot other information regarding the repository, whatever the configuration on the Argo CD, but what are the repo we have configured regarding those matrices. All those matrices being scrapped by the Prometheus. Again, now we have to find the password we can get directly from the secrets from our deployment. Meantime, we can look into the so let's wait for this pipeline to be completed. So it's still pushing this image to the Docker hub. Apologies, my network is a bit slow. So in the meanwhile, let's look into the Grafana password. So to get the Grafana password, we can look into the secrets in the monitoring namespace. So here we have the secret called my Prometheus stack Grafana. Okay, let's check the JSON. If we look into the admin username and password, so these are into the base 64 format. So we need to get these values, and then we have to decode them to the so if you look into, these are the base 64 format. So let's convert that, let's decode this to the, so this is the password for the Grafana. Meanwhile, okay, so we can see this Docker image has been pushed, and in fact the deployment file has been updated. So if you look into the Argo CD, so let's first check our Docker hub. So we should see another image tag. Yep, so we can see a tag 4 was pushed minutes ago. So hopefully yeah, there you go. You can see this went to the auto sync, and now is in the progressing stage. And so Argo CD has picked up the changes. So hopefully it's going to build a new deployment. Sorry, not the deployment, to the replica set using this new image tag. So let's wait for this new deployment to be completed. In the meanwhile, let's continue with the Grafana. So here we have the Grafana dashboard. If we look into the Argo CD, so this is the general folder for our dashboards. Here I have added the Grafana Argo CD dashboard. So okay, so this is the main dashboard for the Argo CD. So here we can see that okay, this cluster has been up from last 2 hours. We have one cluster defined. This is which is the local cluster where the Argo CD is deployed as well. So you can get a bit more detail here as well. Then the total 2 application has been configured, 2 repo has been configured. This is the specific. We can dive into the application status. We can check the health status, sync status for each and every application. We can get more detail about the server. We can check the sync status, the sync activity for all the applications. So here we can see now a new replica set has been created just 2 minutes ago, and if we look into the tag of this new replica set, we can see the tag 4 is being used. A new port has been deployed and the deployment has been updated. Now if we look into the, we should be able to see a new pull, I think. Yep, so we can see the latest the last pull was 2 minutes ago, which was actually from the Argo CD, and this is how a complete CI/CD pipeline or being actually leveraging the GitHub, Jenkins, and Argo CD to actually update any changes happening into the manifest file and deploy, modifying our latest clusters. And this is a very nice representation of the complete pipeline. Guys, if you are interested into looking into how the Argo CD installations, Prometheus Grafana installation, and the complete setup is been done, you can look into my another video. So thank you very much, and look forward to see you in the other videos as well. Thank you.